Hi, my name is Melanie, and this is my story. I was born and raised in Baltimore to a mother who tried to have a baby to keep a man. She knew that my father was already expecting another baby, so I have a brother that's 3 months older than me. I find that significant because when she didn't get to keep the man, she was stuck with me. And I had a mother who tortured me my whole life because I was a keep a man baby and it didn't work. Over the years, my mother, she put me in positions that a mother normally wouldn't put her child in. Like, she allowed me to be molested. And when someone else forced her to go to court, she laughed and she sat on my molester's side and told the judge I was a liar. You know, my mother, she was not a typical mother, and that left me in not typical situations. So I was left out in the streets often or sent to live with other family members. And I dealt with a mother who was sick. Like, she had tuberculosis and then a hole in her heart, and then she actually died of HIV when I was 17. It's like I never had a chance to be a kid. I had brothers and sisters. I had to raise my siblings. I grew up in a house that was full of domestic violence, and having a stepfather who was abusive mentally, physically, and emotionally was not easy. Eventually, he was murdered in front of us in the home. And between my stepfather's murder, my mother's abuse, the sickness, the molestation, I ended up having like blackouts, and I didn't even realize I was sick until much, much later. But I was having blackouts at such a young age. So at 17, right before my mother died, I was diagnosed with herpes. And that's when I found out that, all my wildness and promiscuity was catching up with me. And I tried to hide it for a long time. Like, I really did, especially when I went into the adult industry. When you go into the adult industry and you have fans around the world and you're doing these videos and people are idolizing you, and you live in fear that someone's going to find out your secret every day, it was kind of nerve-wracking, and it added to my mental illness. And I had a breakdown in 2010, and I didn't realize that I was losing like everything, and I think that's what happens. Like, my life goes off track, and then I have like these weird breakdowns. But I lost everything. I lost my home, and my business was failing because I was losing my mobility. I lost mobility in my right arm, and I couldn't walk, and I had outpatient surgery 10 times in 2010. And I kept saying, like, what is wrong with me? But I was finally diagnosed. And I was diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety disorder, and something called dissociative identity disorder. And that means I have multiple personalities. So I didn't have selective memory. I had a problem. I had an illness. And I have a memory gap. And I lose things. And that made me feel so much better to finally have, like, definitions for what was going on with me. I started therapy in 2010, and I went for 7.5 years, for 2, maybe 3 days a week sometimes. And it changed my life. It was so eye-opening because I was able to confront some of the things that had just been stuck in my head because I was always told I couldn't talk about it, or when I did talk about it, I was a liar. After 7.5 years of going to see the same therapist 2 to 3 days a week, I walked in her office one day and she said, I can't see you anymore because I don't take your insurance any longer. And it was just tragic. It was really traumatic for me. And I left her office in tears. And I was going through something at the same time because my best friend of 15 years had just fell into a coma. He had been in a coma for months. And at this point, he's been in a coma for years. It's been 2 years now. And so with me losing my best friend and my therapist at the same time, I went home to die again. And I just laid there. I didn't know what I was going to do, I just hoped that I would make it through, because suicide is real. Depression is real. And when you have lost both your outlets and you can't turn to family and you have no friends, I didn't know what I was going to do. In the last 14 months, I published 8 books. Not only have I published 8 books, but I've been able to turn 14 other people into published authors where they're all nonfiction and they're telling their stories. Now I've built this platform of other survivors across the world who all share their stories and help me uplift others And that's why I'm so excited to be here, just to tell my story, because as a survivor, you have to know that you've already won. Like, people are always saying you're still struggling, I am. That's why my company's called Stronger Than My Struggles, because we never get over, but we've survived. And once you survived it, then yeah, it's an everyday battle with the depression or maybe the PTSD or the anxiety, because it left some scars, but you survived. And when I think about all the things that I survived, I'm so grateful that I got up that day. I don't even know what got me out of bed. I'm just glad that it does every day.